Hello everyone, my name is Scott Dinsmore. I'm Engineering Manager on Visual Studio Mobile Center.
Hi everyone, my name is Blanca Delgado and I am a Program Manager in the Visual Studio Mobile Center team. All right, so our talk today is called Build, Test, Distribute, and Monitor Xamarin Apps using Visual Studio Mobile Center. And so this is our agenda for today. So we're going to start explaining what are the challenges that app developers face and why we, Microsoft, decided to build this tool called Visual Studio Mobile Center. Then we will continue with a demo explaining how Visual Studio Mobile Center can help you with your CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. And then we will explain you how you can benefit by using our monitoring services in Mobile Center, and you can benefit from them and how to use them. So today, there are so many apps out there. We have apps for everything, apps for traveling, apps for fitness, apps for filing expenses. And so our users have high expectations on what they expect from our apps. They expect a high-quality app, an app that doesn't crash, etc. Also, there are so many devices out there. There are different device versions, device OS, device models, etc. And so ideally, as app developers, we need to make sure that the app that we're building is going to work in all of these devices. And so how do we make sure that's the case, right? We don't like those apps as users that have bugs and that they crash and they have a bad rendering. And so we as app developers want to avoid our users having that negative experience. During app development, there are so many steps that can be very overwhelming and can lead you to a bad experience in developing. And so Mobile Center tries to fix all these different issues during the app development cycle. And so you might be familiar with several Microsoft products that try to fix all of these issues, such as, for example, Hockey App or Xamarin Test Cloud, Xamarin Insights, Azure Mobile Engagement. And so we decided to combine all of these products together and create what we like to call the next generation of all of these products combined, which is Visual Studio Mobile Center. And so what is Visual Studio Mobile Center? It's a mission control for your apps. We put all these services together that will help you streamline your mobile app development cycle. So we have services for building, for testing, for distributing, for analytics, for crashes, for push notifications. So we put all of this together under one roof, and so you as an app developer can decide what services you want to use for streaming your app development cycle. And so Mobile Center has basically three main objectives. The first one would be continuous everything. And by that, we mean continuous building your app, continuously distributing your app to your tester, continuously testing your app in all of these devices. Also, continuously monitoring your apps. Understand your users continuously. Make sure there's no crashes going on, so continuously checking that. Continuously engaging with your users. The second one would be we want you, app developers, to build amazing apps. And so we want you to focus on what's really important. We want to take care of the rest, and we just want you to focus on building great code and building great applications that your users can use and have a great experience using. And third objective, but not least, is we want to maintain flexibility and choice. So in Mobile Center, we support a wide variety of platforms. We have support for Xamarin, we have support for React Native, we have native support for iOS and Android. And we also have support for UWP, which basically means that we not only have support for mobile apps, but also for desktop apps. And so with all of this introduction, I'm going to leave Scott showing us a little bit on Mobile Center, how to use it, and our CI/CD pipeline in Mobile Center.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about the development part of this pipeline, where we talk about continuous delivery on building, testing, and distributing our apps. So a lot of times we get our code in, we build it, we test it locally, and all of a sudden everything works and we ship it out there, and then nothing works because we're not shipping our machine. And so what we want to talk about in Mobile Center is we have this idea of continuous build. And you're going to hear us today say continuous everything. And what that allows you to do is say any type of app that I have, iOS, Android, Xamarin, UWP, I can go and set up my builds, have them build continuously every time I push or whenever I want to. I can then also say, once I'm done with that, once that build is passed and I've got all my unit test passing, I want to do some automated UI testing. So what we have is a way to say, you have thousands of devices to choose from. You've got multiple versions of the platform. You've got Android 4.4 all the way up to 8. You've got iOS 9, 10, now 11. I've got different versions of .NET, UWP. How do I make sure that with all these different versions of the operating systems, as well as all the different versions of iOS 9 on an iPod Touch, on an iPhone 6, on an iPhone 7? How do I decide where to put all of these, my testing efforts into, and do I really want to buy thousands of these devices? Well, we allow you to do and test those things in our data centers that have all of these devices available for you for all the OSs, and you can continuously deploy and test these things with UI testing. And when you are satisfied with your own testing, you can start distributing your app. And you can distribute these to multiple people, multiple groups you can define, and we'll show you that today. But the big thing is you have multiple OS releases or OS platforms that have multiple distribution mechanisms. So like Apple has TestFlight, Android has Google Play Store, Windows has the App Store. Like we have all of these different ways of doing things. We want to centralize things because we know mobile developers develop for multiple platforms, and we want to be able to give access to all of these things. So I want to kind of give you a demo of that pipeline right through here. So this is Mobile Center. We're going to talk a little bit about this app today. It's called Xweather. It's an open source platform app. You can go find it on GitHub. And when you create your app, and I'm going to kind of walk you through that real quick, you can see this is what we see when we log into Mobile Center. And you can log into Mobile Center. It's preview today. You can set up an account. It's easy to set up. You log in with GitHub, a Microsoft account, a username and password. We support a wide variety of ways for you to sign up. And when you come in, you can add a new app. You can just come right here. I can say, I want to add a new app. I can say, app. I can give it a cool description. And then you can see that we support multiple platform types. So if I say, all right, I want an iOS app, here we go. And what do I want to write it in? Objective-C, Swift, React Native, because that's the new hotness. Or even what we're talking about here today, Xamarin, I can write it in a C#, in the language that everybody loves. So I'm going to add this new app, and you would see right when we take you, we're going to get you started, and it's super easy to get started and integrate things with this app. And we'll talk a little bit about how you integrate our SDK so you can get access to all these things for crash analytics and push in just a few minutes. So let's go back and look at our Xweather app, and you can see the same thing. We got the getting started page, but I want to talk a little bit about build. So when you go and set up your app, you can connect this through GitHub, Bitbucket, VSTS, and once you connect that to your app, to your source code, you can then say, all right, what branch do I want to build? So we'll go out, we'll analyze your repo, and we'll pull back all the branches that you have, and you can see we have a lot of branches for this app. And I'm going to focus in on, and you can see even here, this build is failing. I'm going to focus in on this Ready 2017 branch. So I can go in here and see all the builds that's happened. In fact, we built something 2 hours ago, and how you set this up. So this is an iOS app, so when you go and configure this app, you have a lot of choices that you might want to make when you have this app. One of them is how you want to build it. Do you want to build a debug build? Do you want a release build, an ad hoc build, those type of things? And what we do is when we go to your source control and when you see this specific branch, we'll go out and we'll try to choose the best defaults for you. So when we set this build up, it went out and said, oh, I found a solution, and I say that you have these configurations, so you can see it'll find all the configurations in your app. So we're talking about debug here. We'll talk about what mono version you want, what Xcode version you want. You can see that we support a wide variety of Xcode versions. And then as well as what you might want to do with this app. So we support another scenario, which is custom build scripts. So when you have your app and you've set up these things, you may have a way to do pre and post build steps that you want to do, as well as like pre-clone, post-clone type of steps that you want, and then set those up, and you can write shell scripts or PowerShell scripts and actually get those to run. And then when we talk about different build types, I can build it for a simulator, which is really only going to run on a simulator, but you get a fast build. So maybe you want to set up a branch that just does fast builds, runs your unit tests, and it's just for a simulator, so you can just do that. As well as you can build on every push or just manually. As well as when you build these things, you always want to have a build number. So you can either use those build scripts to actually define your build numbers, or we'll do this for you that's based on a build ID or a timestamp that you can go ahead and we'll create a build number for you. And so that when you build that, you know what version's going out. So when you start looking at all the crashes, and hopefully you don't have any crashes, and the analytics in your app, you can see what things are associated with what version. And in the importance of iOS, you will need a provisioning profile and a certificate. We'll allow you to upload those. We'll store those securely, and we'll put those with your app. So you want to associate the right provisioning profile with the right build type. And then as well as we'll offer you this a simple test to run on a real device, which we'll talk about in just a minute, is for testing, UI testing, and then just as a simple launch test. So after we run your unit tests, we'll actually go in and say, hey, we'll launch this, we'll just launch it to see if the application actually launches on a real device. And another interesting, great thing you can do is distribute this build on every build. So let's say you have a set of alpha testers that you always want to just send the build out to, say it's all the developers on your team. You know, every time you do that, you want to every time you get a build, you want to send it out there so that they can update it. And that'll show up on their device, and then you can just constantly be testing your app on a real device as well. And you can just set these guys up and have them distributed on every build. As well as if you're really cool and like the cool kids these days, and you want your status badge on your repo, we'll give you a link to that, and you can put that in your Markdown file as well. So that's kind of how you configure each build, and you can actually do this for every single branch. So you can have multiple branches, multiple build types, multiple builds going to different developers, and those type of things. And then when you do this, you can just set up a build. I'm going to set this up right now. We'll let this build. We'll come back to it at the end, kind of show you what you get when a build happens. So let's talk about tests. Testing is a huge problem in the mobile world because we have all these devices. But what we have, if you've heard of Xamarin Test Cloud, we've kind of moved that over, and we now have Mobile Center Test, and you can run all type of tests on multiple devices. So to drive that point home, let's look at one real quick before we go through all the options you can have. So this is a test series that we ran that has 2 or 3 tests that pass, and you can see that we set up 6 devices for this to run on, and 2 of those devices failed. So if we can go in here and we can kind of look at, oh, this is where something failed. Let's go take a look. So what you see is every time you run a test, we show you the device that it's run on, and we give you a screenshot of what that looked like. So we have, if you look at this app, it has all of these different pictures of the things that have gone through to show you how all these tests ran. And they're just UI tests, so they're looking for things. And let's go look at one that actually has a failure. And the interesting thing you see here is that it has failures on 2 different devices, the iPhone 5C and the iPhone 5S. The rest, like 6S Plus, 6S, 6, and 6 Plus with different OS versions, they seem to pass. And of course, these 2 failed on different ones. Luckily, I kind of know I've seen this before. So I'm going to go look at this, and you can see this is an iPhone 5C. You can see we kind of gather CPU and memory, how this is done. So let's go look at the logs and see if we can't figure out why this failed. So if I look at the test logs, I'm going to get this long list of everything that happened in the UI test, kind of to give you all the steps that were reproduced to this. But I want to look at this test failure right here. And if you can see, it says I couldn't find this app button add for when I want to add another weather thing. What that usually tells me is I probably have a bad layout for this phone, since you can see the 5C is kind of a shorter viewport for the phone, and the add button is probably off the screen, so I can't actually do it. And this UI test caught that, and that's something I would rather catch myself on these testing runs than send it out to my customers like this. So let's go back and look at all these test runs again, and you can see we have some analytics about peak memory and number of tests and how they're passing. And what you can do is you can come down here to first is set up all your devices. And if you see like I have an iPhones with iOS 10, iOS 9, a ready set, I can create new device sets. I can create all kinds of devices. I can just call these, like, I wouldn't want to use Android, but I can search for Android devices and put them all in here. We have iPhone 7s. You can see there is a wide range, and every single one of these are devices. So I'm going to go back over here and talk to you a little bit about test runs. And once you set up these device sets, then you can actually create a bunch of test runs based on those device sets and test series so that you can group these tests together and actually do them, run these tests. And these will run each time you want and you can run them in different series, you can run different device sets, those type of things. So once you have tested everything and actually set up your distributions and groups and things like that, you can distribute your app. And these groups here you've set up to actually, you can have multiple groups to set up to go, all right, when I have different builds, maybe from different branches for different reasons, can go to different testers. You can see right now we have external testers, and then we have friends and family, because my mom always wants to see my new apps. So I've got this. I can create new groups. I can distribute new releases, those type of things. As you saw before when we went to build, we actually distribute these on build every single time. So my phone is already buzzed. So when the build has happened, let's go back and look, and I can show you. Nope, it's still building. That was not that build. It's actually going to send me an email saying, hey, there's a new build available for you. And there's two ways you can get these new builds. You can get an email, you can install it from the email, or if you just don't pay attention to email and you let them pile up, just like me with 5,000 emails in my inbox, then you will when next time you open an app, it'll tell you, hey, there's a new build, and they'll let you install it. So let's talk a little bit about these stores as well, that you're probably going like, stores, what is that? Stores is something that we're doing to say, once you've created groups and beta tested your app and you want to distribute straight to the store, because you can imagine I've got my iOS app, that's going to be going to the Apple Store. I've got my Android app that could be going to Amazon and Google Play Store. I've got my Windows app that's going to the Windows Store, as well as I might have an enterprise app that's just going straight to Intune. So this is the guys the Intune is what we support today. So you can actually distribute your new Windows app straight to Intunes, to your enterprise Intunes store or portal, without having to go and do a separate piece. And we're going to integrate very soon Apple Store, Google Play Store, and others to actually allow you to once you decide to go, hey, I'm done with this app, I'm ready to go, I'm going to distribute it, and I'm good to go. And you can also go and look at all the releases that you have. There we go, just now, that's my release that I just had, that we just built. And if we go back to build, you can see that. This guy got built. This is the build. You can see when you have your build, you have an entire build log that you can go through, and you can say, all right, if I had any failures, I could see and go right through them. If there were any tests that I had, they will run your unit test, and it will actually go through, and you can look at all those, and you can download those build logs and do anything you want to, and analyze them for later, the build, the symbols, the logs, however you want to do that. So that is the kind of continuous portion of build, test, and distribute for our app. And I'll turn this back over to Blanca to talk about the other portions of Mobile Center.
Awesome, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the monitoring services in Mobile Center. And so we now understand how to continuously deploy, continuously integrate. And so now what? What happens when your users are using the app or your testers are using the app? You need to understand what is the experience looking like. Are they experimenting crashes? Are they using this feature that I put so much effort on? And so for that, we bring here 3 services. The first one would be crash reporting. So crash reporting, Mobile Center looks similar to the Hockey app crash reporting if you've seen that before. And so basically, with our SDK, we will allow you to collect all the crashes that happen in your app, automatically bring them, group them by similar crashes, and provide you so much information about each crash that will eventually help you to locate the crash, where did it happen, and help you to fix the issue, which is the end objective of crash reporting. Then we have this analytics service. So analytics basically will allow you to understand what's happening out there. So how many users do you have? Things like, are my users using the specific, specific feature that I built? Or what type of devices are my users using? Do they have iPhones or tablets, or what sort of devices do they have? And then we have this other service called push notifications. So with push notifications, basically you will want to engage with your users. So let's say you want to communicate them a new release, a new web version. You want to tell them about a discount that you're having, or you want to tell them about this awesome, cool feature that you just released. And so with push notifications, you can easily do that, and a message will pop up in their devices very easily. And so now I'm going to move into a demo, back to Mobile Center. And so I'm going to move into crashes. And so I'm going to look into the crashes for the last 90 days. So the first thing we see here is some sort of analytics for the crashes. So how does my crashes look like in analytics ways? So how many users are affected by crashes? So here we can see for our X-Weather app, we have very few crashes. So we can see
awesome code that we wrote.
Amazing. And so 98.8% of the users do not experiment any crashes, which is amazing. Then we also have analytics on how many crashes per day are we having. So we can see here on July there was some crashes happening, but lately there's been no crashes. If we scroll down here, we also see a list of crashes, what we call crash groups. So a crash group is a set of crashes put together, and they group together because they're similar. They're of the same type of crashes. And so for each crash group, you basically see how many times it happened, how many users were affected, in what specific version it happened, and when did it happen. And you can also track the status of it. You can filter by version. So let's say you want to focus on the latest version, because that's what you care most about, because most of your users are in that specific version, for example. You can also filter by time range, what's happening in the last 7 days, for example. And then again, you can filter by status, so you can decide to open, leave it open, or close it, or just decide to ignore it. And so I'm going to go ahead into one of these crash groups. And you can see here we get some stack trace for the crash group level, which will help me understand where the crash happened. And so I'll be able to go back to my code and analyze it from there. We also had some further analytics. So we can see, for example, what are the devices that were mostly affected. In this case, for example, we can see that there was only one crash for this specific crash group. And the device affected was an iPhone 6 for this specific OS version. And so here we have the different reports. So I'm going to drill down into one of these reports. And again, you'll get stack trace information. You'll get this overview page, which basically show you when did the crash happen, how much time after the app started. You can see where the device was located, the language of the device. You can see the network, like T-Mobile, AT&T. You can also see if the device is jailbroken or not. We also have what we call threads, so you would be able to see the different stack traces for the different threads, as well as events. So basically, this is what we call breadcrumbs. So this will allow you to understand what events happened right before a crash. And we will talk about events in a little bit as part of the analytics service. Also, the SDK allows you to add attachments. One more thing you can do for this specific crash instances, you can download a JSON file or as a text format. And so you might be wondering, how do I get all these crashes? What do I need to do in my code in order to get this? So this is the best part. I'm going to go back to the Getting Started page, and I'm going to see how the SDK for crashes works. So as you can see here, all I'm going to have to do is integrate these specific lines for these statements. So in this case, I'm going to add the crashes one. And then I'm going to have this start line, which basically will identify uniquely your app. And then because we have a modular SDK, you can decide to add only crashes. So you would say type of crashes. And then once I show the analytics service, you will see that it's very similar. So if you want to add the analytics, you will have to add one extra line and one extra sentence here. So going back to crashes, one more thing you might have noticed is that we have the symbols tab here. So as you may know, in Apple, all we get is memory addresses. And so with memory addresses, there's not much we can do as a human, like how do we read that, right? And so what we do is this process called symbolication, which basically will transform these memory addresses into something that's human readable. So you as a developer can easily go to your code and like understand what happened and so on. Awesome. And so now I'm going to move back. I'm going to move to analytics. And so here we see these three tabs here. And so again, as I just showed, all we need to do is integrate this analytics SDK, modular SDK, with a couple of lines of code. And I'll get all these analytics out of the box. So let's analyze these analytics. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that you can, again, filter by app version or time range. You can focus on whatever is important for you. And so here, this first graph basically tells me the number of active users that my app has. So this will allow me to understand how is my app doing. Am I really getting any users? Are my users using the app or not? So we can see here that this app wasn't used for a while, but then the last few days we've been testing it out and trying it out. So that is us.
Apparently nobody likes our app anymore.
Well, we'll still use it there.
Yes.
And again, you can see this in a monthly basis, weekly basis, and daily basis. We also have information about sessions. So we have this called daily sessions per user, which allow you to understand how many times your users are opening the app, as well as session duration. And this will tell you how long are my users staying in my app. If I'm developing a game, you will expect your users to spend a lot of time in the app. But depending on the type of the nature of the app, you might just want to open it up and expect like short session duration. Also, here we have a list of the top devices that my users are using. So this might help you, for example, prioritize what devices I want to test it in with our test cloud service, for example. and give you an idea of what sort of devices your users have. We also have information about the OS distribution, as well as countries. So this will be the country set in your device. Here, for example, we can see that our users are mostly in Denmark. We also see information about languages. So again, language of the device. In our case, it's English. And then you can also see information per version. So this will help you understand if your users are adapting the latest versions. So in this case, for example, we have a new versions, and it seems that users really didn't adapt it. And so you can drill down further and understand why is this happening, right? So this helps you estimate that. And so now I'm going to move into this new tab, events. And so this what it is what we call custom events. So let's say in my app, I release this feature. My team put so much effort in releasing it, and I want to understand if it was really worth it, or should we remove it, or what we're going to do with it, right? And so what you can do is with our SDK, you can track different actions that your users take. So you can do things like page. Let's say I want to understand if my users visited this page, or if my users clicking this button, and so on. And I want to show you real quick how this would be done from the SDK. So this is the documentation for Xamarin app. And so basically here we can see that all we have to do is analytics.trackEvent, give it a name, and then we can attach a dictionary into it, so a custom key value pairs into the event. And so that's it, that's all you need to do. And then basically we'll start getting all these measures for you. And so for each event, we get things like how many times it happened, which would be this count. We get how many users actually trigger the event. And then we also get information about how many times per user and how many times per session. And so on top of that, I can press into one of these events, and I can drill down further and see how these metrics have been changing a long time. So again, we still have more users, so we had more people having this event happening. Same with count per user, count per session, and you can also see the trend on how this is changing a long time.
You should delete this. But it doesn't.
And then, as I was showing, I was talking about these custom key value pairs that you can attach to your events. And so, for example, I'm going to show this specific event. So this event in our app basically will tell us every time someone visits a specific page. And so I want to understand further not only how many people are visiting the page, but also how much time are they staying, right? And so here what we did is having these values where basically we divide by time. So we want to understand how many people spend less than 5 seconds, how many people spend from 5 to 10 seconds, etc. And so here we have a very nice distribution on, we can clearly see that most of our users spend between 5 and 10 seconds, which is kind of expected, reasonable to check out the weather. Some others, like it's less than 5 seconds, and then the rest are less probable to happen. And so you can do that with all your events. You can attach several properties into it and drill down further. Awesome. We also have this feature called Logflow, which basically will allow you to see the incoming logs in real time, and will allow you to see, like, was my SDK properly integrated? Am I sending the data in the right format or not? So that's it for analytics. And I'm going to move into the push service. So this is what we call push notifications. And as I was saying before, this will basically allow you to engage with your users. You want to communicate them something. You want to let them know something. So you can do that directly from our portal and put the notification in their devices. And so here we can see we have several notifications that we previously sent. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a new one and show you how that works. So this works as campaign. So basically, it's you might have, for example, the campaign .NET-Conf, right? So I do .NET-Conf campaign. And so now we can add it a title and a message. Title is optional, so I'm just going to add a message, and I'm going to say, hello, everyone. Welcome to Mobile Center. And so here I can add custom data. So here it could be things like a URL or like an image. This is really to customize your own notification. So I'm going to hit next. And then we can see here we have 3 options. So this is on who am I sending this notification to. The first option would be what we call all registered devices, and this is pretty much a broadcasting sort of notification. So everyone that's registered for push notifications in my app is going to receive the notification. So you may want to think twice before you send something.
Send it to everyone, even my mom. She loves them.
And then our second option would be the custom device lists. So here, basically, this would be very helpful if you want to, for example, test notifications. You can, with our APIs, get the specific device ID. And so you put this here, and then basically only these devices for these device IDs will get the notification. Our third option, and pretty interesting, is what we call audiences. So audiences pretty much is a segment of your users based on a set of properties. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second. For now, I'm just going to show you how I would send a broadcasting notification to everyone, those that Scott's mom like.
Yes.
Hit next, and then here I'll basically review the message, make sure it's all good, I'm sending the right thing, and then I would hit send notification. And then the notification will basically be sent to our devices. And then here, basically, I'll get the details in this page. And so you might be wondering, again, how do I set up these push notifications? So it's going to be very similar to what we did with Crashes Analytics. Again, our SDK is very modular, so you will just need to add a new statement for push notifications, and then you'll have to add basically a sort of, depending on the platform, you might want to add like a different notification service, like Windows notification service, Firebase Cloud Messaging, Apple notification services, etc., depending on the platform. So I was saying here, I want to show the audiences. So what's an audience? So we can see here a set of audiences that we previously created. As you can see here, each audience has a name. So if I click into one of these, I see here, for example, latest version. What's the rule here? The audience rule is app version equal to the latest version. And so basically this you can customize yourself. So let's go ahead and create a new audience and see how that works. So I'm going to say here, I want to do an audience for English speakers that are in the United States, for example. So I can add a description here. And so here's the interesting part. I can add different rules. So in this case, because we're going to do an audience for English speakers in the USA, I'm going to set country equal to United States. So here it is. First rule, we have around 16% of our users, 6 people. And then I'm going to do language equal to English. Awesome. So now, again, we still have 16% of the users. And so what I could do here is I could still add more rules depending on my objectives. And also, very interestingly, I can add what we call custom properties. And so these basically are set by the developer. So as a developer, you can define a set of custom key value pairs that will show up here, and then basically you will be able to segment your users based on those custom properties. An example of custom property could be I want to differentiate between my premium users and my regular users. Let's say I want to thank them for being there and for paying for my app. So I can basically send a notification to them saying, thank you for still being there. You're a premium user. You're awesome. So in this case, I'm going to set this audience. I'm going to click Save. And so basically here, we're computing more in details, like how many users we have. Again, we have around 6 users. Perfect. And then what I can do, go here, and I can directly from here send notification. And then, again, I will have to set up, as I did before, title, message, again, attach custom data, click send, and my users for that specific audience will get the notification. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so this is for push. One more thing I'd like to show for you guys today is our APIs. So in our team, we have a very clear rule that we don't like to ship any feature in the UX that doesn't have an API. And so for that, we are going to go to the documentation. And this is our documentation. And under reference, you can see here the API docs. So here we have a bunch of extensive documentation. And what's interesting, we have this Swagger. So I already opened the Swagger here, and I'm going to show you how that looks like. So this is our Swagger. Basically, what's going to allow you to do is try out our API without the need to run a PowerShell or anything. So basically, you can do everything from the browser very fast. And so here, as you can see, I have a bunch of APIs. I have one for account, one for each service like Crash, Analytics, Push. And so I could go to Analytics, for example, and I could, from here, just get all the session logs. And by just adding the configurations like timing and the several filtering, I could just hit try it out, and then I'll get the results directly from here. All right. One more thing I'd like to point out is we also have a notification system that basically allows you to get a notification every time a new release is distributed or a new crash group happens. So that's up to you. If you want to get spam, you can do that. If you want to avoid notifications, then you can disable that. That's up to you. But that's something we offer as well.
We have a lot.
Awesome. And so with that, basically we want to encourage you to try out Mobile Center. It's free while in preview. We're still in preview. We're working very hard on becoming GA. And you can go to mobile.azure.com and give it a try. As you saw, we have extensive documentation on all these APIs, SDKs, and all the features we show you, as well as the APIs and the Swagger. We also have a roadmap. So if you go to our documentation, you'll find the roadmap. And there we try to very often update with new features that we released and what are our future plans, so to keep you guys in the loop and understand what are our next steps. As part of this, we also have an integrated support system with Intercom in our system. So you might have seen when we were doing the demo, we have this blue button on the right button, which basically allows you to talk to us directly. So I'm actually going to show that. I'm going to go back to Mobile Center.
Oh, I wonder who we can talk to right now.
Let's see. Let's see who is there. So I can do new conversation, and that's me. So that's me, Shaun, and Jessica. So this is 3 people in our team. You can just hit their message, and then we will try to redirect that message to whoever is more expert in the topic, and then we will just,
Do you sit at night and talk to yourself on intercom?
I could do that.
Okay.
Why not? So I can do that as well. So please contact us there. Give us feedback, questions, anything you need. Also, you can follow us in our blog, engineering.mobile.azure.com. We put all of these blogs up there, super cool, with all the updates and how we work in details on everything. So you can do that as well. And we also have a Twitter account, which we're also very active and put there a bunch of conferences and stuff like that. So at Mobile Center. And that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I think we have a few questions we can answer,
Yeah.
hopefully. I think you answered the first one about, is it free to use? It is free to use while still in preview. We're still working out what the pricing will be come GA. Hopefully that will come very soon. And then the next question is, I'm storing my code on VSTS, and I've already got build definitions up there. Do I need to set up a new build in VS Mobile Center? The answer is no. We built Mobile Center to be very modular. Just like our SDKs are very modular, you can use any part of Mobile Center that you want by itself. So let's say you already have your code up there, you already have builds. We have connectors from VSTS right to test, distribution, and you can set up your SDK right in, and you'll still get all the stuff in Crash. You don't have to have your builds come out of VSTS. In fact, a lot of people already have that stuff. One of the things people do like is, I didn't really talk about it, but in our build, you saw that we were building an iOS app today. We already have Macs that you can build on. You set up your build. It can be Mac or Windows. We take care of all of that underneath the covers for you. And I'll let you answer that last question.
So the Apple Developer Program. So to use our push notifications service for Apple, because as I said, we will need to integrate the Mobile Center SDK, and then you also need to, for example, in the Apple case, you will need to set up the Apple notification services. So for that in specific, you will need the Apple Developer account.
And if you want to distribute apps through Apple Developer, the App Store, or you want to build any signed IPAs and distribute those through that, you will need an Apple Developer Program so that you can generate the Apple certificates and your provisioning profile, because you will need, for anyone that's familiar with iOS app development, you will need those certificates and that provisioning profile so that you can set up the person's device IDs and those type of things. And we're actually working on a lot of things in Mobile Center to make that whole flow easier, because we know as mobile developers of any kind, you don't want to have to go from site to site and deal with all these different things. Just like if you're a mobile developer, you've probably got things in Google Play for the Android side of things, just like you do in Apple. We're going to try and make that seamless as possible for you. And I think that's all the questions.
Any other questions?
Do you have any questions for me?
I can text you later.
Oh, okay.